It's with great gratitude and appreciation for John Mills, a member of ours presently at Eastern Illini Electric Cooperative in the Fairmount area, who had great foresight to preserve some 16mm film of a connection of a family farm, Mr. George Richardson, who was getting connected in 1939 for the first time with electricity on the farm. This was a celebration of a new count being connected in the southeastern part of Champaign County. This was so important back in the late 30s when someone got electricity that there was actually a celebration. The staff or leadership of the cooperative would come out and be there, and neighbors would show up to see the connection happen. And this 16mm footage is an example of one of those celebrations.
My Uncle George was a member of the Illini Electric Co-op. Uncle George, he lived about a little over a mile north of Sedoris, Illinois. He lived in the home place that his parents had and where my grandmother grew up. I had seen that my grandparents, and my mom and her brother, one of the activities that they did was watch home movies that Uncle George had. So I knew he had these. When he passed away, he didn't have any children. So they decided to let nephews and nieces come over and kind of go through to see if there was any mementos or anything they wanted in the house. And I went along with my mom. I knew these movies existed and I was kind of interested in those. So when I found the case where they were, I asked her if she'd ask the others if it was all right if we got them, and they agreed to that. So my real motive in getting them was I thought maybe there might be some movies of my grandparents, and I brought them home and looked through them and discovered that apparently he'd taken movies of when the electricity came to the farm. I thought it was kind of funny that he had a home movie camera with no electricity in the house, but apparently he did. The private electric companies, they didn't want to run electricity out there, you know, go 2 miles to pick up maybe 1 or 2 houses. They didn't see much sense in doing that, but part of the New Deal was to bring electricity out to everybody, and so REA came out. Really, it was probably a beneficial thing for a lot of other businesses because there's a lot of people out there wanting to buy refrigerators and stoves and lamps and appliances that were all electrical powered. That was a time of change, big change on farm, really, in the late 30s and the 40s. Electricity changed that quite a bit.
As soon as we realized we had a story here, a story about cooperatives, a story about where we've been and where we are today. And I think it's a story we need to be told because we don't really appreciate things now like we used to appreciate things. And we don't appreciate the hard work that it took to get this cooperative to where it's at today.
It was hard work. When we weren't connecting new customers, my job mainly was dig holes, and if you can dig a hole 6 foot deep in an hour or something like that, you've done pretty well, and I could do it. I was 125 pounds of solid muscle.
They were a pretty small co-op. I worked at the Illini Electric Co-op before we consolidated. No, I just always enjoyed what I did and enjoyed working with the people and the farmers, and being a farmer, growing up on a farm, I could relate to the, farmers' problems and helped them out as much as we could.
I was a good old groundman. I knew how to dig holes with the old diggers. Right outside of Gilman, I just went to work for the co-op, and this lady lived out in the country all by herself. They had line. They had that, with construction, had put that line in. Every time she'd see me, "Kenny, can you get me electricity?" That's all she wanted was electricity. And finally, after a certain length of time, she caught me on the street and she says, "Kenny, thank you." I says, "I didn't have anything to do with it." She says, "Oh, yes, you did." But she finally had electricity, and they were so happy to get it.
They was gracious. That's the word you'd have to use. That was fixing their line, making sure we didn't fall down during the night or during a storm. They were happy to see us working at it. maintaining it.
I was working for a contractor, $2.50 an hour. I started out here $2.51 an hour, penny an hour or more. But it was a nice job, good job. You got to know all the farmers. You got to go out and know all the farmers. You knew a lot of them anyway, but then you go to different parts of the area, you learn new ones. And they're always decent people, very good people to work for.
The co-op acquired the truck in 1950 new. They used it at various locations until the late 70s. And when they retired the truck, they sold it to a local collector. And then when Dave Champion retired 3 years ago, he bought the truck and donated it to the co-op. So that's how we came to get the truck back.
So for a number of years, Eastern Illini has been in the process of restoring a 1950s digger truck. And we recently were able to complete that process, and some of our staff had the idea, Bob Dickey especially, to invite some long-term retirees in to reminisce about not only the truck but their experiences at the cooperative.
These men have a story to tell, and we wanted to hear it because we're our third generation of cooperative employees, and we have many new linemen. We have many new people here in the office that really have never heard that story. But these are the men, the linemen, who did the backbreaking work to climb the poles that made it happen.
I can remember living without electricity. Everything was battery operated, and we did everything by hand, pumped all the water by hand, and on the farm, it was a lot of hard work back then. You know, the kids nowadays, they have sports to go to. When I grew up and going to school and high school and stuff, I come home, I had 2 hours of chores to do. I mean, it's quite different now.
I never didn't want to go to work. I was always looking forward to the next, after the weekend, go to work Monday morning. Of course, a lot of times we worked around the clock too, back in those days. And by the way, if I had to leave the ground, you did it by yourself, climbing. Now everyone has a bucket, pretty near it.
I came to work for Eastern Illinois Power in August of 1947. Our main job seemed to be energizing lines that the contractors had built and setting meters for people that didn't have electricity. Those people were so glad to get it. You had to almost run away and leave people. They wanted to give you cake and pie and dinner and coffee, and it was a feeling of doing something for people that they had always wanted, and now they had it. And until you've dealt with things like that, you almost can't imagine.
Some of the pictures we looked at, some of the old trucks we've seen, they had pictures of, and some of the old guys that worked here at that time, most of them are gone now. Yeah, that was nice. That old truck, yeah, I run that quite a bit. Rolling wire, mostly.
The old digger. The old digger. It was really a wonderful feeling. Did not have to dig them holes anymore. But every once in a while, you still had to dig one on the other side of the ditch. You couldn't get the digger to it. We got that when Paxton got their first hydraulic digger. It was a 50 model. Gosh, it was a good truck.
One of the retirees mentioned that after the war, World War II, he was able to provide electricity to houses for the first time ever. And that connection of him mentioning that solidified in my mind and a lot of our employees' minds what it meant truly to be a cooperative employee. So I want to thank them for their reminiscing, and I think we got much more out of it than they did.
And when we were able to bring electricity to the country, we changed everything. But these are the men, were the linemen who did the backbreaking work to climb the poles that made it happen. Everything we're doing here is tying everything together. Whether it be the film in 1939 it was taken, whether it's the 1950s truck, and then bringing the men together here. And this is part of our legacy. And this is an ongoing legacy, and we anticipate that this cooperative is going to be here for many, many years to come.